The next morning I headed out to go see Judy. I did at least wait until afternoon, as I was pretty sure Judy wasn't a morning person. She just gave me that vibe. Pulling up into Lizzie's, I was greeted at the door by a different bouncer than usual. Rita wasn't there, but I was waved through and I headed into the back and down the stairs. I slipped into Judy's studio, only to find Judy mid-BD. I shrugged and grabbed a chair and settled in, waiting for her to finish her editing, or whatever she was doing. Unfortunately, this was boring, and it wasn't like I could go and hack into her system. Judy wasn't Hiromi. So I just waited. Minutes passed as I watched Judy sort of mumble to herself as she rested on the chair. Finally she shifted, slipping the wreath up away from her eyes and letting her stretch a bit. "Hey Judy." "Ee." She shrieked as I accidentally startled her. I should probably stop doing that. "Sorry Judy, you okay?" I asked after a moment as Judy was gasping for air and holding her heart. "Don't do that," she hissed at me, hand clutched to her heart. "Sorry. I just didn't want to disturb you while you were working." She muttered a few expletives in Spanish under her breath as she slowly rose up and took a few steps around as if gathering herself again. "You are way too quiet. Those lynx paws of yours must be high-end," she finally said, and I tilted my head. "I don't have a pair of lynx paws. I thought about getting them, they would definitely help me be sneaky, but I haven't picked them up yet." "What? That's not right, you're already super quiet. What do you have that lets you do that?" "Practice mostly," I answered semi-truthfully. I even pulled up my boots and undid one to show my normal fleshy foot. "See? Shit." She blinked before shaking herself a bit. "What crazy corpo Black Ops training did you crawl out of? Half the stuff on the BD, I have no idea how you even do it." "Really Motoko?" It was eye-opening. "Where did you learn to move like that?" I decided a lie was perfect here. Let people draw their own conclusions. Well, my mom used to be a netrunner, and my dad was a solo. They worked together. I decided to offer with a shrug, as if that explained everything. "Nailed it." "Right. Crazy. Anyway, you here for the BDs?" "Yeah. Did you finish them?" "I did. I spent all night editing them. The side jobs were smooth. I actually thought they were pretty interesting. The Maelstrom one? It was preem work. Terrifying but preem. Took forever to edit the Virtue, but it was good." "You, do that a lot? Killing people?" she asked nonchalantly as she was busying herself with her system, leaning back and pushing some keys on a keyboard. I hummed a bit. "Sometimes. Depends on the gig and the people. I've killed a lot of Maelstrom recently, but that's more for personal reasons," I replied, wiggling my hand a little to show what I meant. Right. Preem," she muttered, obviously uncomfortable with the thought. "Not really your thing, huh?" I couldn't help but ask. "I don't like XBDs. There's a reason I do BD work for the mocks, and not anyone else." She mentions pushing a final key and looking over to me. Her expression was still uncomfortable, but I could see her try to get over it. I winced a bit. "Sorry. Should Nox and I find a different editor?" No, nothing like that. It just makes me uncomfortable, but it ain't the first time I scrolled some fucked up shit. This was less fucked up than most, to be fair. Really, it was the surprise at how it felt more than anything. "You're more deadly than you let on. You know?" she said quietly, looking me over as if. Well, I guess she was comparing the me that was sitting in a chair in front of her, to the one she had seen in the BD. I could only shrug and smile at that. "I try." "Yeah," Judy said awkwardly before pulling herself together. She reached over and hit a button on a machine connected to her system. A short buzzing noise echoed out, and I blinked when I recognized it. A BD file producer. As I watched, a few BDs started clunking out, each of them wrapped in that stupid condom wrapper. 4 in total. "Well, here you go. The first of your BDs," she said, swiping them up and offering them to me. I quickly grabbed each of them, gently looking them over. I couldn't help but snort as the wrapper had Mox colors, and well, the packaging wasn't really matching. But I knew how to be polite, and it was a Nox problem. "Thanks, Judy." "Hey, don't mention it. Nox is the one who bribed me to do this, so it's not like you owe me anything." "Still thanks." I can't wait to show these to my chum Hiromi. I hope it cheers her up a bit. XBDs would cheer her up? Judy asked, sounding a little skeptical. Not that. Not exactly, but like seeing what I do because she's been a little trapped and it's a long story. Right, not my biz. Judy. I'm here. Knox suddenly called out as he ran down the steps, his hair a bit in disarray. Did you just get out of bed? I couldn't help but ask as I noticed the way his hair was everywhere and he looked half asleep. Yes. Hey Motoko, I was up all night waiting. But I'm here. Judy, you finished the beadies? Yep, a while ago. They weren't super long, not like a long session. Anyways. You need to make them though. You aren't burning through my printer. Or, come on Jude, you know Susie charges me. It costs money to make beadies Knox, you know that. How much? I have some cash I can put in. I offered, interrupting as Knox was going full puppy dog. Hey, I can't do that Motoko. You already put in enough eddies. It's not a big deal Knox. I offered, my eyes going blue as I threw a couple grand towards Knox. There you go. That should be enough to get started, right? Aaa. He choked a bit but Judy just snorted at his reaction. Just make sure you make more than you spend Knox. She tells him as she pulls a shard out of her computer. Here. These are the 4 files. Go on, I got some work to finish up. After my break. She muttered, rubbing her eyes a bit. I guess I had been proven wrong. Judy was a morning person, she just stayed up all night to be one. Alright. Come on Motoko. Let's go. I'll show you how to make some beadies. I shrugged, willing to take a look. The puppy I mean, Knox led me upstairs chattering away at how he had already put some buyers together, and if sales went well, he knew some street kids that would sell them on his behalf. Knox definitely had some ideas about spreading them around. It was cute how excited he was about it. He led me up and into one of the beady booths upstairs, where I did my best to ignore the music and the partying going on around me. He put the shard into a machine along the wall, and with a few options selected, beadies began flowing out. I'll start with like 10 of each, spread it around, let some interest build up. I hope it'll explode right out, but sometimes it takes a bit before buyers will start biting, word of mouth and stuff. That okay? He asked over the blaring music and I threw him a thumbs up. Yeah, nothing happens instantly. Just let me know. I don't know when my next gig will be, but I'll let you know once I have some more cool recordings. Great. Okay. All done, he said. The same backpack he had when I first rescued him was now full of beady wrappers. Do you want to come along? See the process? He asked, sounding a little nervous. Was he worried about getting jumped again? Sorry, I have some other stops to make, but if anyone causes you any trouble, call me. I'll come help, I told him. While he smiled at my reply, it was a bit of a weak one. Right. I guess I'll see you later. Of course. Keep in touch Knox, let me know how the sales go. I'm super excited to hear about it. I'll send texts every day, to update you. Preem. Funnily enough, it was Hiromi that gave me the idea for my next grinding session. Her Arasaka ice had been a good whetstone to grind against for my overall net running skills. So I headed over to Yoko's for my next adventure. The net running cafe was as busy as always, only one of the chairs was actually in use. But as always, Yoko was standing there already watching me behind her glasses as I entered. Oh? Back already? I need some ice. Preferably something pretty high-end. I told her and flashed her a smile. You already know what I deal in. Any information to trade? Yoko's question made me wince. I really didn't have anything. I don't suppose what I just asked for is something I can buy with eddies? Not unless you want some over-the-counter wet, she said with a blank look behind her sunglasses. Wet? I couldn't help but ask. The way she said it was weird. Ice that's melted. Already been solved. Useless. She informed me and I nodded. That was good to know. It also gave me an idea. Actually, wet would be just fine. Do you have something that was solid before it was solved? Yoko seemed to take in my words with a sort of confused stare, before she shrugged. Sure Motoko, I have some old copies of everything, it's sort of my thing. What do you want? How much will $2,000 get me? I asked, checking my account. Wakako had given me some good eddies for the gigs I had done plus bonuses. I could spend a little here. Splurge really. I'll go get you a stack. She replies, laughing a little as she disappears into the back. Cool. So I now had a ton of shards that has ice programs. But I needed something to run them on, and I had a good option. But it involved going home. I still had another repaired laptop in the apartment. But I hadn't been back alone since. So I took a deep breath and drove over, sliding into my parking spot in the parking garage, and checking my guns, making sure my boya was loaded. I also grabbed my carnage, just to make sure. Then I walked up to the apartment fully loaded for war. It earned me a few looks, but I was just happy there were people around again. In fact, I happily took a slight skip in my goal as the food cart guy that sold the tasty mystery meatballs on a stick was in his usual spot out the front door. Morning, I greeted, as I passed over some eddies and got my usual order in return. Glad to see you're alive, kid. He offered with a nod, but that was all the words he offered and I wasn't waiting around. I headed inside, past the piled up trash, that was actually worse than normal. A few of the old Asian guys that were playing chess just inside were back in their normal spots. It was almost like before, just without the protection of the NCPD ever arriving if something went wrong. I took the stairs easily, racing up the flights until I arrived home. The door opened easily. Home. I took a deep breath and let it out. I finished off my meat stick, placed my carnage on the table and flopped onto the couch. It was good to be home. The last time where we just grabbed stuff wasn't the same thing. Still, I wasn't here to relax. I was here to grind. I grabbed my laptop. I had planned on selling this one, but using it as training was good too. I installed one of the wet ice from the pile of shards, and locked down the laptop. Just because the ice was solved, and wouldn't stop any netrunner that knew what they were doing, doesn't mean it wasn't still good security if they didn't have the solution. It was like a lock that everyone had a key for. But if you chose not to use a key and instead tried to picklock it, well, it was still a lock. Really, it just meant I could pull out my cord and jack in, and start hammering the security. It didn't matter if the ice noticed. It didn't matter if I failed, or succeeded. If I failed, I just tried again. If I succeeded, then I could just uninstall the ice, chuck the shard in the trash, and grab a fresh one. I wasn't going to stay at home the whole day. So after just a couple hours of intense grinding, I locked everything down and decided to head back to the dojo. I couldn't let June start freaking out when I didn't come back. But I left with plenty of alerts. Intelligence leveled up. Intelligence 6. Breach protocol skill level up. 1 perk point gained. Breach protocol skill level up. Breach protocol level twice in just that amount of time. Since I was breaking ice without worrying about alerting someone, or having some black ice catch me unaware, I was able to go all out, uncaring about mistakes, or caution. I learned a lot, even without the levels, but with them. Breach Protocol 6. I was filled to the brim with knowledge about breaching system security. In a way, I was at the point where I finally realized how little I knew about it. I shook off the knowledge of the mountain I was staring up at when it came to the knowledge of the net, and instead focused on getting back to June. I decided to keep the perk saved for now, mostly because I wasn't sure what I wanted out of it yet. A little time to think about it would do me some good. After a winding route back home, carefully making sure I wasn't followed, I made it back to the dojo apartments. Finding June already napping in his bedroom, I crashed on the couch and decided I would join him. My brain was tired from all the net running. I didn't like puzzles, and breaching systems was like the world's most complicated puzzle game. I just had to deal with it for now until I got good enough that the puzzles were all easy mode. I set myself a sleep schedule for 8 hours and activated it, passing out instantly. I did not sleep for 8 hours. I startled awake. Something was wrong. I looked around, having grabbed my boyu off the living room table as I rose up. The TV was off, there weren't any noises. No intruders, no movement. But something had struck that chord in me to wake up. I blinked the tiredness out of my eyes. Since I didn't get my full 8 hours I was groggy. But then I heard it. Sirens. I ran to the window, but couldn't see anything. But I could hear them. I turned on the TV, switched to the news and got my confirmation. Once more on the streets. A full deployment of all NCPD forces have been released onto the city to once more secure a peaceful night city. The curfew is in full effect. NCPD has asked us to remind all citizens that the safest action they can take is to head home and lock their doors until NCPD once more secures any and all troublemakers in our fair city. I turned away from it then, opening June's room to see him still passed out as I flipped on the lights. Wah! He surged up and looked around confused. June. The NCPD are back. Listen, I demanded, and he blinked confused at me for a moment until he heard the sirens as well. Shit. He cursed as he jumped out of bed and grabbed the first clothes he could find, before rushing out of his room and towards the dojo. Since I was wondering what the Tiger Claw response was, I decided to follow. Benefits of June being higher up in the gang, I guess. We both slipped into the dojo, only to discover it was surprisingly calm. June looked around before finding Sensei. Sensei. Kusanagi. Kusanagi. He greeted us both but focused on June. So you heard? Motoko woke me. Are there any orders? No. The voice that responded wasn't Sensei. Instead Fujimura walked out from around the corner. If memory serves, there was an office over there. We knew exactly when the NCPD would return. The word went out, and all contacts are going to ground tonight. The NCPD will not find the Tiger Claws in their sights. So stay off the streets. He rumbled out, a metal finger pointing, but not quite making contact with June's chest. Understood, Fujimura-sama. I shrugged. Fair enough. I wasn't about to run out on the streets with the NCPD probably arresting anyone and everyone. With that, June started a conversation with Fujimura that I didn't care about, and I wandered off. The dojo was quiet and Sensei just gave me a little nod showing he saw me, but he was speaking with June and Fujimura as well. So I went back to the apartment, settling back onto the couch and turning on the news. Of course the news was filled with positive situations happening throughout the city. It was all bullshit propaganda, but it did give me an idea of how fast NCPD was spreading across the city. I couldn't help but wonder how the return of law enforcement would affect Night City. I did the smart thing after waking up the next day and stayed inside. I was really lucky. Without my ability to fall asleep at will, I definitely wouldn't have managed to get much sleep. The constant NCPD sirens throughout the night meant when I finally did wake up, it was to a groggy June drinking some caffeinated drink he had grabbed out of a vending machine while watching the news. Me though? After 8 hours I was perky. Couldn't sleep? I chirped at him as I rose up and stretched. No. He grunted as he took another sip as I sat up and stretched. Then I hopped out and cleaned up a bit before grabbing my new testing laptop. I settled onto the couch cross-legged right next to June as I slotted my cord in, and went to work on another set of ice. What are you doing? He eventually asked, distracting me a bit, but I kept myself from getting booted out of the breach. Net running training. I'm getting used to breaching through ice. I told him with a smile, one eye on him, the other taken over by a screen displaying the ice countermeasures. Huh? He offered, turning back to the news and taking another sip of his drink. Silly June, I would have to get him a pair of earmuffs or something, if he kept having trouble sleeping. I was practically buzzing though. I really wanting to go out and do something, but knew it was a bad idea. So instead I fell back on what was my favorite activity when I was stuck inside. Grinding. Although. Hey June? Yeah? Do you mind if I mess with you a bit? I asked, only to have June slowly turn towards me, mouth still buried in the can. Whatever you are thinking. No. He responded after a moment deadpan. Or? I whined at him. You don't even know what I was thinking. And I know I wouldn't enjoy it, so no. I just wanted to send my quick hacks at you for practice. You probably have better ice than most people I would see on the street. Right? You do have ice, right? I have the ice provided for me, and my ECM. Oh right. The tattoos were actually not just tattoos but a ECM system the Tiger Claws preferred. Preem. I told him. So can I quick hack you? It's just ping. No. You are boring when you are sleepy. I grumbled at him, but went back to my breaching. Of course. He might not even notice. I looked towards him out of the corner of my eye, and just before I managed to send the quick hack his hand reached out and grabbed my face, covering my eyes. Ow 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 ow, I hissed as he squeezed a bit. I said no. I give. Surrender. I whined, not really wanting to start a fight with my laptop in my lap. Plus June was obviously grumpy right now. And I wasn't sure I wanted to mess with grumpy June. He let go and I sighed as he gave me a single look before turning back to the news. Fine. See if I ever act as a netrunner for you. You'll be like Motoko. My beautiful and genius little sister, please save me by hacking into this evil mainframe. And I'll just be like, no way you jerky-faced older brother. You didn't believe in your glorious and slightly eccentric little sister. I would never say that. More like annoying brat. June replied, and that I couldn't allow that. So I kicked him, which unfortunately was a mistake. Grumpy June had no chill. Okay, if I offer a ceasefire, can I at least reach my laptop? I mumbled into the couch from beneath June. The jerk had literally sat on me, and knocked my laptop out of my lap in the scuffle. So I wasn't even able to grind. Trapped beneath my stupid heavy brother, who was definitely eating too many burritos. The fatty. I managed to swivel my head a bit and catch his eye. Then I realized to my horror what I was seeing. Those weren't my Ni-chan's eyes. They were the eyes of a cyber psycho. June was too far gone. No, he told me, smiling the look of a monster as he reached down and continued to poke my face. I couldn't even retaliate. He had managed to pin both my arms while I was still playing around. My vengeance will be legendary, I told him, but he didn't seem to mind. A few minutes of my pleading getting nowhere, we were both interrupted by the door to the apartment opening. My inability to grab a gun and do anything was the only reason I wasn't pointing my Lexington at whoever walked in without knocking. Harry. The door was closed, June said grumpily as he glared towards the door, which is when Ollery appeared in my view. First she looked at June, then down to me, then back up at June. Then she sat. The bitch sat on my struggling legs. Vengeance, I mumbled into the couch because I couldn't even kick or wiggle with two heavy borgasses on me. Now June boy, you should really knock on the door before entering my apartment. Got any more of those? She asked, pointing towards the can of soda June was drinking. Harry. June growled out. Oh fine. You were as always boring. Far too serious. But getting better since your cute little sister came around. How is she, by the way? Not too flat? She asked, but the fact I could see her wave her hands over her own plastic tits told me she was making a double joke. At least mine are real, I hissed. Ow! I yelped as she took a sharp nail and poked the bottom of my foot that was trapped under her plastic ass. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I heard a Harry. Don't stab my sister, June said, sounding totally done with this as he stood up. Freeing me. Commando June B. That was as far as Harry got. Now freed, I rose up, arching backwards, my knees digging into the couch as I slammed a bit into Harry's side, grabbing her shoulder, wrapping my arm around hers and then flexing to literally toss her over my shoulder and off the couch. Her absolutely shocked yelp was glorious as she went flying and landed off the couch in a massive thud. That's for calling me flat. I have to bit as I rolled a bit to get onto my feet. The Borg woman laying on her back staring up at me with a dropped jaw. Yeah, Motoko does that. June called out as he grabbed a soda and we both heard the hiss as it popped open. Then he just started drinking. Don't mind me. Carry on. He offered, waving his hand. Asshole. Harry though, instead of getting up and going on the assault, just started laughing. You really are a fearless little thing, aren't you? Last time I nearly went off on someone, they started running away every time I met them from then on. Look at you, willing to literally throw me around? June, your cute little Emoto is gonna either get herself killed, or become a monster. I'll be a monster. More like get me killed, June and I said at the same time. I just snorted at June being a jerk as Harry rose up chuckling still. It's kinda nice to be treated like a normal person again. Just be careful, little Emoto, Akari said, and she was suddenly beside me, her arm over my shoulders. You might set me off someday, she whispered into my ear. Akari. Fine, fine. I'll leave her alone. You big overprotective brother, you. Fujimura-sama is calling everyone in, she said, and Jun quickly put his can down. When's the meeting? Now? She asked, sounding innocent, but Jun sighed as he instantly rushed for his room, hurriedly getting dressed and ready. You should come too, little Emoto. This isn't a war meeting, so they are likely shutting down our little headquarters. The excuse of the Gungva keeping the dojo closed isn't going to fly much longer. She offered, poking my nose with her thin claw-like chrome. Seriously, Akari had this thing, where she had to be constantly poking or prodding, or stabbing someone. Sure, I said, shrugging as I slipped out from her claws and started getting dressed, if not as quickly as Jun. A few minutes later I was following after Jun as he stalked to the dojo, trying to pretend he was put together, and not grumpy, running on barely any sleep. Akari as usual, being annoying, but not to me this time. Inside the dojo the main room was full. The entire kamikaze group were here, most were sitting Caesar around as Fujimura stalked around. A few couldn't sit that way thanks to wounds, or simply how their legs worked. But otherwise that was the room. The only one that wasn't was Sensei. He stood against the far wall. I decided to do like him, resting up against the wall, and not joining the group. I didn't want to let them think I was one of theirs any more than they already did. NCPD have already done much of our job for us. Maelstrom has been pushed back. They were caught unaware by the return of the cops. Fujimura called out suddenly as Jun slipped into a spot, Akari settling in nearby. There were nodding heads and sharp grins from the group at that. There has already been communication from the Maelstrom leader Brick. He called out, but this time only a few of the kamikaze looked pleased. Jun most of all was now frowning. Yes. That means there will likely be an end to this war with Maelstrom. Fujimura called out, and I could see Jun's tension ratcheting up. That does not mean we will stop killing them, of course. Fujimura hided his eyes, happened to be passing over Jun, but the full-out assault to push back the Maelstrom is over. We won. There will still be plenty of blood for those of you with grudges. But it does mean that the kamikaze will no longer act as a fast response unit. You will all return home. Duties will come slower, and in smaller groups. You bled for your people. Kamikaze, he said something at the end. Something in Japanese, that I just couldn't figure out. Stupid America brain. I only knew 2 languages, English and bad English. But all of the kamikaze offered a bow, as Fujimura did the same. Huh? The rest of the little cyber psycho party was pretty boring. Fujimura went around to the group. Some of them were told they would be returning to previous jobs as there was no reason to keep the entire kamikaze group together during a peacetime. Jun wasn't one of them. Instead he was told the dojo apartment could be his if he liked, but otherwise, he was free to return home. The jammer wasn't needed anymore, and everything was going to sort of go back to normal? If anything could go back to normal. If I thought I was feeling a little confused about all the changes that were happening. Jun looked like someone had tugged the rug out from under him down a massive flight of stairs. He was just kinda staring into the distance. I walked over since the Borgs were milling around or wandering out of the room, and plopped next to Jun. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. He was feeling lost. His goal pulled out from under him. It's okay, Jun, we can figure out what to do next. Together. Dash. I followed Jun around for the next while as he finally stood up and headed back to the apartment. Once he was inside he made to move back to his room, but I finally spoke up. Jun. I called out loudly enough to startle him. Motoko, take your time. Get some sleep, and don't worry. We will figure everything out. I'll be here when you are ready to talk. I told him before walking over and flopping on the couch. He watched me for a minute before snorting, and then turning and walking back inside his room. Idiot, he said as he entered his room, but I let that pass. I was totally going to wake him up in a day or 2 by jumping on him. Let him get settled and not think about the revenge that was coming. Until then I had some grinding to do. I really wanted another point in intelligence. It was time for the system to properly acknowledge my brain. I spent the rest of the day grinding out alerts, but it was coming in a lot slower, plus June kept interrupting me with watching the TV, which kept drawing my attention away from my grind. Another afternoon passed with me grinding away trying to get enough intelligence alerts, when suddenly my head started beeping. I was getting messages. I looked at the small list of messages, some from Hiromi, mostly just talking about how boring her classes were. But I got a few from Nox, and one from Judy as well. Nox, got some clients lined up. No sales yet, like you said, but I'm putting out feelers. Nox, managed to snag a few more kids interested in your gigs, haven't gotten any responses back yet. Nox, hey. Haven't heard from you, that jammer again? Gave someone a sneak peek, interest was super high. Even managed to get him on the line all 4 BDs. Nox, big day today. Word is getting around. The NCPD coming back is making things hard though. Might be slow sales at first, since it'll be dangerous to get around. Shame. If we could have the BDs on the market now, all the people stuck at home would have something to check out. Haven't heard from you. I nodded along at Nox's messages. I would have to send him a text letting him know the jammer was down. Well, for once I might want to hold off on that just yet, he was a Mox. So I continued on reading the other messages. Judy, Motoko, I feel like I was a bit bitchy last time we talked. Just wanted to make sure you know, you are welcome with the Mox. Regardless of your TC connections. I was just freaking out a bit. Oh. That was kinda sweet of Judy. I didn't really feel that I couldn't. I mean, she had just been threatened by the TC with kidnapping. I'd be a little uncomfortable too. As I was browsing through the sudden deluge of messages, June came out of his room. Jammer is down, he said suddenly as he walked past the couch towards the fridge, pulling out a drink and hammering it down. Yeah, I just got a ton of texts. I'll have to call Hiromi. Do it after, pack up first. We're going home, he said, and I actually whooped as I jumped off the couch. It would be sorta nice to return to normality, that and the jammer was such a massive pain in the ass. I hurriedly gathered up everything, arms overflowing with my treasures, as I raced it down to the car. It took a few trips. With that, June slipped onto his Kusanagi. My quadro ended up being stuffed with junk that June had gathered since he left, since he couldn't carry it on his motorcycle. Then we raced home. Well, June did. I followed the traffic laws, and at the first red light that June blew through I lost him. Seriously, June, I don't care if your butt is made of metal, you are on a motorcycle, drive safely. Finally I reached home. I parked out on the curb, where June was waiting. I stayed with the car to make sure nothing got clapped as June ran up and down the stairs toting everything inside. Then I parked in the garage and headed inside. Home. The streets were crazy busy. I couldn't help but notice as I crossed the street, even more than usual. It's like with the NCPD returning, everything that hadn't wanted to leave their homes were now on the sidewalks. That, and I supposed with the curfew no one wanted to be caught outside after dark when the NCPD were feeling more trigger happy than normal. I walked through the throng of people, some heading towards the cherry blossom market, some to other shops down the street, and some just hanging out. It was nice. The tense atmosphere of the city was gone, returned to this constant mishmash of people. I ran up the stairs and entered the apartment to hear June shuffling around in his room. I peeked in and saw him going through a backpack of stuff, slowly taking it out, looking it over, running his fingers over the items and then putting them somewhere around the room. It felt like a personal moment, so I went ninja and slipped into my room without him noticing. Ninja skills were useful for something other than on gigs. Inside, I shut the door and looked around. My bags and stuff were in a pile at the entrance. I walked inside. It felt odd to be here. This had been my room since I woke up here in Night City. It wasn't quite nostalgic, but it felt good to be here. I decided not to unpack anything yet. Instead, I walked over and flopped onto the bed. I lay there for a bit, just sort of taking in the familiar ceiling.